on what I did to get there. And what I found was the first part, which I'm only going to go through part one of this training, okay? We're only going to go through part one, is the platinum perspective. It was the mindset that I had as I was approaching this business and I was talking to people about it. And so for your notes, this is kind of the table of contents. Do I have a pointer? Yeah. We're going to have, six different points, and I'm going to show you how Legal Shield is so incredibly relevant in the world today through all of these different categories, okay? So first of all, in economics, this is something that will be a theme throughout this training, and it's that the people who solve the biggest problems make the most money. And it's either the biggest problem or the most problems, okay? Because that's all that money is. It's added value. That's how we get paid. So keep that in mind as we go through. So let's do a little history lesson. And I am in no way an expert at history, but I can definitely tell the major pillars that have happened. So kind of the spark notes of a history lesson in economics is that we had a couple of different revolutions. Most recently, these last four, is that the agrarian revolution, that was where we were all accustomed to having family businesses. You worked on the family farm, or you had a family shop, or you had some sort of a trade. You had apprenticeship. You were learning a certain skill that allowed you to earn money into your household. And what happened there is that somebody came up with tools that allowed the farmer to produce more. And the person who came up with those tools obviously earned a lot of money by doing so. Well, you fast forward to the turn of the century, then there was the Industrial Revolution. That, by the turn of the century, it was customary for us to actually go to work for somebody else. That was the norm. Well, that's lasted for a very, very, very long time. We go to the Information Revolution. This is more of an employer-employee, okay? Again, very customary to work for somebody else. And most recently, we have the Connectivity Revolution, otherwise known as the gig economy, which is where we are today. But what's really cool to understand is that we're still in the transition. We're literally standing in the line on the timeline that separates the information age to the connectivity age. It's like we got one leg across each line, and we're making that transition, which therein lies the rub. Most people are stuck in how it used to be. You got to go to school, you got to get good grades, you got to get a degree, you got to get a good job. Well, things are changing, and let me explain to you how that is. But before we do that, I'm all about, again, this training is about perspective, okay? So I really want to put the big picture in your mind. I want to zoom out. I want to give you the macro here. Has anybody ever read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell? Really, really, really cool book. Read it like back in high school before I even knew what personal development was. My dad gave it to me. I thought it was kind of interesting. He told me a couple stories. So I decided I'd read it for myself. The two takeaways that I got from that book were these two stories. One of them was where he did studies on professional hockey players, okay? And effectively what it said was that if you go back to whenever they were like pee-wee hockey players, and it was, you're 8, 9, 10 years old and you're playing, well, of course, in order to know whether or not you qualify for those leagues, they're done by age. It's not skill set yet, it's by age. And so what they did was they saw there was a correlation between all the NHL hockey players and their birth months. And it was really, really interesting because a lot of the people who were in the NHL had similar birth months. And all it is that whenever there was an age cutoff, during that developmental stage as a young boy, if you were born in the month that allowed you to have 11 months of growth, so you were 11 months older than the boy who was born on the cutoff month. Well, think about the difference between an 8-year-old with 11 months on a whatever it is. 11 months is a big amount, so you're going to be stronger, you're going to be faster, you're going to be able to hit harder, right? So obviously you get more playing time, and so the correlation is that because of the timing in which they were born, they had a competitive advantage, and therefore they made it into the league. Pretty cool takeaway. The other one was Bill Gates. Now, Bill Gates, obviously a brilliant mind, but the time in which he was born into the American economy, he actually had access to a supercomputer. He had access to whenever computers were actually rooms. They were as big as a room. And through whatever the story says, he had access to like a community college where he could actually use it. He could actually play around with it. He could actually develop the engineer mind that he was born with. And the point to these two stories is that if they were born at different times, they would have had different destinies. And so what I would like to suggest is that what if you are being introduced to this company at that kind of a time? Okay, because we're going to look back 10, 20, 30 years from now and say it was because of the time in which I was introduced to this, at the time in the company's history, and the time in American history that I was able to create a life, to where we are to this day. So let's go back and let's think about it. If it wasn't for Andrew Carnegie being born in the time in which he was, he would not have created the dynasty that he did. Same thing with, we talked about Bill Gates, but I like Steve Jobs better. Same analogy there, right? If he was not born in the time in which he was, he would not be Steve Jobs. And so again, what about you? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Let's keep going. So, the gig economy. I read in, I think it was the New York Times, and they said that the gig economy is the democratization of capitalism. That's not something we need to talk about right now. Just write it down and look it up and think about it, because it was kind of cool, okay? But we have to understand that whenever you look at all the really, really, really cool companies, the movers and shakers in the world, most of them started in a recession or in a depression because it forced these innovators to actually do something. Without a recession, if they had a comfy job, they would have these dreams that they never act on because there's too much of a risk. But because of a recession, they're forced out of their comfortable position and they're made to have to figure out a way to survive. And so the gig economy is a result of a lot of different things. So it's a forced alternative to traditional corporate jobs because technology, outsourcing, disruptive innovations are coming along, and all of these people who are accustomed to the old way of doing business, working for somebody else, they're having to find a way to not just stretch across, but to jump across to the new way of living, the gig economy. They're forced, they have another way to do it. It's like the person who was working for Ford for 20 years. You guys remember like 6 months ago, they laid off, 20% of their international workforce? 20%. Now all of a sudden, they have to figure out something to do. They look in their garage and they see a car that used to be a liability. Now it's an income source, an asset, an opportunity because of what? Uber, part of the gig economy, okay? You see how that works? So we're forced into this new revolution because of certain things. It's available to the majority to participate in earning money, which is cool. You make your own schedule, which is cool. But the sad thing about it is it doesn't lead anywhere. The gig economy, the bulk of those opportunities, they don't lead anywhere. As a couple of examples, you guys have seen some of these: DoorDash, Uber, Postmates, Lyft. These are it's like a treadmill. It's like a very traditional hourly job. You turn your app on, you pick somebody up, you get paid. If you don't turn your app on and you don't pick somebody up, you don't get paid. It's very similar to a traditional hourly job. So the first part of this is putting Legal Shield, which is in the gig economy, in perspective, okay? Because we have a lot more to offer than just turning your app on, picking somebody up, and getting paid. So comparing us to a traditional gig economy paid per job, think about it. We have advanced commissions, we have overrides, we have promotions, legacy, bonuses, and residuals. None of that is offered in all of the apps that you see, yet they're still incredibly beneficial. So this right here, just to kind of give you guys the cliff notes, because I'm going to kind of tell you the aha moments instead of kind of massaging them out because of our time crunch. The aha moment here is that we are part of this revolution, but we have all the advantages of a traditional job that people are accustomed to. So you can pull them across the line to the new way of doing business, okay, but still give them the comfort of all the things that they were used to, minus a salary. But really, with residual income, you can create that for yourself, okay? This was something that maybe most of you know, maybe most of you don't. Definitely a very common sense thing, but I only got it, back in May. I was coming back from my honeymoon in Cabo, and I was just reflecting on the plane. I love planes because I'm forced to think. I don't spend the $7-8 for Wi-Fi or whatever it is, because then I'm just stuck back on my phone doing whatever I would have done down on the ground. I want to use it to force myself to think. I journal, I read, and I read really slow, but I can get through it a lot on a plane. And I was thinking about the resort that we were coming back from, and it was beautiful. It was all-inclusive. It was a mega resort with I don't know how many hundreds of rooms. You know, all-inclusives, you're drinking top shelf, you're eating filet mignon, you got lobster, like at 2 in the morning for room service if you want to. It's unlimited. And so everyone who goes there is like, all right, let's see how bad I can take advantage of this, you know? I'm going to have lobster for breakfast, for a snack, for lunch, you know? I'm going to have filet mignon on my lobster on top of my filet with a side of lobster and filet. Just go ahead and pour some alcohol on it, why not? And so I was thinking about how the heck does that system even work? And then I go, oh, it's Legal Shield. It's a lot of people paying a little bit of money to create this massive value so you can take advantage of it. And what's cool about these models is that they have all of these companies that we're going to get into in a second, talking about subscription-based companies, have effectively adopted an insurance model. Okay, we all understand how insurance works. We talk about it in our business briefings. It's a lot of people paying a little bit so that if you spend $100 a month and you wreck your new Mercedes, they're going to write you a check for 60 grand. Just like Mr. Moeller said, if you're the only person paying in, that'd be a very expensive policy. Or like a gym membership. If you're the only member at a gym, that'd be a very expensive gym membership. So you break it down. So same thing with resorts. It's more value for less commitment. It's not used by everybody, so to the company, they get free money every once in a while. If you are a member of a timeshare and you don't travel every 90 days, 120 days, whatever it is, you have rollover points, right? And that's when everyone gets stuck, and you have so many rollover points that my stepfather just gives away these trips because he doesn't have time to go on them. He has too many of them. So that's the aha moment that I had, was that all of these companies are transitioning to a way in business that we as Legal Shield are leading the way in. And so, of course, they're able to disrupt the price. So this was just kind of cool. I did some research on the App Store and Google Play, which Google Play, if you guys don't know, it's just for other phones, and Apple Store for iPhones. And these are the 10 most profitable apps on the stores. Okay, so these are subscription